What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to a more festive Bird's Nest. For us Eagles fans, Christmas came a little early. Jalen Hurts, in his first NFL start, holds down the link and gets an upset win against the New Orleans Saints, and that's the number one defense in the NFL. Jalen Hurts goes 17 of 30, 167 yards, and he throws one touchdown. Miles Sanders, we've been asking for it week after week for him to come back, get some more snaps. 14 rushes, 115 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jalen Reagor leads with the most amount of receiving yards with 46, then Dallas Goedert 43, and Miles Sanders did it both. He caught the ball for 21 yards as well. Max, this was Jalen Hurts' first start. We saw him all 4 quarters. Was this enough to prove that Jalen Hurts can be our franchise quarterback going forward, or do you think maybe it was just a fluke?
Well, I don't know. I think I'm somewhere in between. I definitely don't think it was a fluke. He played well. I know there wasn't much tape that the Saints could use as far as, I guess they could have went back and looked at the Alabama tape and the Oklahoma tape. But as far as playing in the NFL, they didn't have a ton to look at. So I don't want to overreact too much based off of one start. He definitely deserved and earned another start, and that's going to come up next week against the Cardinals, already announced, which is awesome. So, Hurts definitely deserved that. But I think one thing that stood out for me that really impressed me the most was the ability to get out of the pocket and escape for those yards. He was our leading rusher with 18 attempts on the ground, ran for over 100 yards, 106 yards to be exact. So you never want your quarterback taking that many rushing attempts, and those hits that he took down the stretch there in that final quarter of the game. But I definitely like what I saw overall. And looking towards the future here, you got to start him the next 4 games, barring injury, just to see what you have. And, we talked about this last week, the possibility of Carson Wentz and his future here. And if Hurts keeps performing like this, the water's just going to keep boiling and boiling, and eventually it's going to spill over because, at that first start, he looked really impressive overall.
Yeah, the weeks went on, and there was always conversation about who goes first, Carson Wentz, Howie Roseman, or Doug Peterson. And I think Doug Peterson is leading this. We've already mentioned it on the Philly experience, how unlikely it would be for us to trade Carson Wentz and the money that goes into that. Not unlikely, but it's not looking like it. But so we saw Doug Peterson have a couple of questionable calls in this game. He went for it a couple times on 4th down. He was lucky the first time. Jalen Hurts was able to throw that touchdown to Alshon Jeffrey, but that was I think we're both on the same boat, how that was luck, and maybe you go for the field goal
Right.
in that scenario against this tough Saints defense. You're not going to get many opportunities to get one over on them. Jalen Hurts' first drive, 14 plays, just over 8 minutes. There was 23 passing yards, 39 rushing yards. The offense was on the field for a while and came with no. At the end, they didn't score. But I liked the way that Jalen Hurts kind of took over this team. Even the veterans were behind him, and it just seemed like we were able to see the weapons and play their part on this team. Jalen Reagor, he got the ball. I mentioned earlier, Sanders was finally running. And this, to me, saves Howie Roseman's job, because we're seeing how the young guys like Jalen Hurts, Jalen Reagor are playing out there and how it's sort of working around his initial plan. So that's when I go back to maybe it's Doug Peterson who's leading this gone first contest.
Yeah, listen, I think Jalen Reagor is a good player. I think we've seen flashes this year of what he can be, but Justin Jefferson is on his way to becoming one of the superstars from the wide receiver position based off of his rookie year alone. So from that standpoint, it's still a bad pick, in my opinion, even though Jalen Reagor, who, like I said, has shown flashes, only had 2 catches for 46 yards, missed a couple of deep balls. Not that it was his fault. Maybe he just didn't hook up with Hurts. The ball either was underthrown or, he just missed it. I recall one play where he ran across the field deep, and it was just out of his reach. But we're not nitpicking here. I just feel like he can still produce. He can still give this team some energy and returning punts and things like that. Also had a 19-yard rush, which was good to see as well, using him in different ways. But back to Jalen Hurts, 17 of 30, only 167 yards passing. And one thing that's been questioned is Doug Peterson's, reluctancy to simplify the offense for Carson Wentz. But then he comes out and he says, I want to simplify it for Jalen Hurts. I don't know if I believe that 100%. I want to question that a little bit. It looked like the routes of the receivers were the same, but Hurts was just getting the ball out quicker. He was hitting those out routes to Dallas Goedert, especially 4 catches for 43 yards for Dallas Goedert, and they just looked more comfortable. Those out routes, those simple screen passes to Miles Sanders, the ball just looked to come out more crisp, more accurate to Miles Sanders. He had 4 catches for 21 yards coming out of the backfield, and that's one thing Wentz struggled with when we saw him play. Those simple passes that he would just either throw in the dirt or just overthrow, over the head of Miles Sanders out of the backfield. So I will point out this before I throw it back to you. Miles Sanders had an 82-yard rushing attempt for a touchdown. It took up basically the length of the field. But other than that, he only had 13 carries for 33 yards if you subtract that big 82-yard run. So, again, he got the carries, which is what we wanted to see, 14 attempts overall, the touches close to 20 with the receptions included. But for the most part, 13 for 33 is still not getting the job done. I know it was against the Saints offense, but I feel like people are giving the run a little bit too much credit from yesterday's game.
Yeah, I mean, this team, even though you're playing against the New Orleans Saints, they were 10-2 at the time. You can't afford the mistakes that were being made early in this game. It was this 2 pre-snap penalties in a row that were stopping the Birds' momentum when they were marching down the field. And now we go into this game against the Cardinals. All right, we already have quite a few injuries on defense. We just heard Rodney McLeod is out for the season with that ACL, the torn ACL. I believe Maddox might be out, and Slay might be out with a concussion. So going forward, we're going to have guys coming up from the practice squad and stuff like that. But we have, just Jalen, I believe Wallace there too, and we got some practice squad players. So what is this defense going to have to do to sort of hide that, the space open in the backfield?
Yeah, well, I'll start with this. The defense, for some reason, just came out of nowhere and played pretty well yesterday. I was surprised. They were underperforming all season long. I don't know if it was the energy Jalen Hurts brought on offense. I don't know if Jim Schwartz schemed up a different game plan. I don't know if it was Taysom Hill being the quarterback and not Drew Brees, or a mixture of all 3 of those things. But you got to admit and give credit to that defense overall. They played really well. Holding the 10-2 at the time, New Orleans Saints, the number 1 seed, to only 21 points. And again, that last drive there, Jared Cook made a great catch in the back of the end zone, or else it would have been 14. So I know Will Lutz didn't have his best game kicking for the Saints, missed a couple, but overall, you have to like what the defense has. You have to like what you've seen from the defense, and going forward, people are just going to have to step up in that secondary, especially. The defensive line is going to be the key. If we're going to keep winning football games down the stretch here, the defensive line is just going to have to get pressure on the quarterback, because, we saw Seymour, some guy that's brought up from the practice squad, get burned deep by Emmanuel Sanders yesterday. So those guys just don't have the talent. It's not their fault. We expect that. That's why we need our leaders to step up, and our leaders are located on that defensive line, with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, even Derek Barnett. He's been here multiple years. So those guys are going to have to create pressure to take the pressure off of our defensive backs.
Yeah, and you go back to the kicker, how the Saints kicker didn't have a good game, and we go to our Eagles kicker, Jake Elliott. Right before halftime, he misses that field goal to put the team up by much needed points going into the halftime. You're up against the New Orleans Saints, big time NFC team, and that's something that we got to go into the offseason thinking about players on their way out. Jake Elliott, he's hurting us, and I know we were a little more mad at Jake Elliott than maybe a few other people, because for a few shows now we've been talking about how it's just a kicker. He goes out there, he kicks a field goal, and field goals are very important to the outcome of the game. If you miss a field goal, you lose by 2. That shows that kicker is very responsible for the outcome of the game. So going forward, we got the Giants. They lost to the Cardinals, and the Washington football team pulled out a win against the San Francisco 49ers, and you have the Cowboys beat the Bengals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned the Cardinals. the team that we are going against next week, beating up on the Giants. Now, we have, with the injuries of the players I mentioned on defense, Maddox, Slay, and McLeod, what is this team going to possibly do against DeAndre Hopkins, for one, and,
Yeah.
Kyler Murray, who is very agile back there
Yeah.
in the pocket? And is there anything that we can do?
Well, the simple answer would be no, especially if Darius Slay is out with the
Yeah.
concussion. But listen, the guys are just going to have to step up, play well. And again, you're going to need a little bit of luck. Like, let's be honest here. On paper, we're not supposed to win this matchup. Luck's going to come involved, plus field position, maybe a lucky tip pass.
Yeah.
I'll give you that Patrick Mahomes example yesterday, a couple tip passes. Dolphins got good field position. So maybe you get some luck there. Maybe a fumble. Defense is going to have to step up and play as best they can. I think Hurts, he might have a similar performance like he did, against the Saints. But overall, do you expect him to run for another 100 yards? Probably not. Doug Peterson even said in his press conference he hasn't won Hurts running as much. So to stop DeAndre Hopkins with Slay is a tall task. Without him, you're going to have to just scheme up. It's scheme. Jim Schwartz going to have to put something together to stop that running game from Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins as well. But overall, with that kicker situation, look, it's the little things, right? In a season that's just been anything but perfect, 4-8-1. Jake Elliott missing an extra point, especially a 22-yarder, it's unacceptable, and it's blown up because of the fact we're in last place or second to last place in this division. So that's my stance on Elliott. If we were able to cut him and bring in another guy, that would be preferred, because I don't think he's going to stick around here too much longer, especially if he keeps missing. But he's going to command an $8 million cap hit, which is not good. We've already been down this road with cap space with Alshon Jeffrey, now with Carson Wentz. You just can't cut these guys because this isn't the MLB, this isn't the NBA. It's not how the cap works. So that's why you're going to have to roll the dice with him until the end of the season.
Right. Yeah, and we mentioned luck going into it, and it almost seemed like the Eagles were starting to notice that the draft pick was going to go lower on the board if they won this game, and it looked like it was slipping away from them in the final minutes of that game. But we were able to pull out the upset win. I saw a few people on Twitter predicting that win, but I wasn't bold enough to go that far.
No, I learned my
I'm
lesson.
sure happy with the outcome. Yeah, we mentioned DeAndre Hopkins and how much of a threat he can be, but they also have Christian Kirk, and then on the run game they have Kenyon Drake. So this Eagles defense, this banged up Eagles defense, is going to have a lot to do with the outcome of this game, and if they can pull things together. But right now it just seems as if it's the Jalen Hurts show. We go forward to now his second NFL start, and it seems like Jalen Hurts will even more impress us, I hope, at least. And going to the December 20th game against the Cardinals in Arizona, it's going to be a battle for him to face, but it's going to add more experience to his career.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a tough game. But Jalen Hurts is the right man for this job right now, especially these last 4 games. The question is, depending on how he plays and if he plays well, which I do expect him to, because there's simply no film on him in the NFL. It's just a new quarterback, a new system that he's going to take out onto the field and play, especially against these weaker opponents. Arizona, not a great team. I know they're 7-6, but they've shown their weaknesses as well. And then a couple division games, Washington has been playing better, but still, overall, that's a huge question mark that's going to be leading into the offseason. Is Jalen Hurts the man for this job? I'm not going to go there yet based off of one game, because I would like to see him, throw the ball a little bit better. 17-30. I'm not going to sit here and, question that. I mean, it is what it is after one game. But overall, you have to see more of the passing game. Not that he's a bad quarterback, but the receivers just have to get more involved. You can't have 6 catches overall from the receiving core. You need more weapons on the outside.
One question before we wrap up. Do you think they're going to implement Carson Wentz more into the game plan as sort of like Jalen Hurts' role earlier in this season?
Yeah, it's a good question. I thought they should have in a few plays in the Saints game. And we talked about this on the quarterback sneak on 4th and 1 where they snuck Hurts up the middle. He got stuffed and didn't get it. I thought they could have used Wentz there, and I relate this to a Philip Rivers, Jacoby Brissett type of deal with Frank Reich in Indianapolis. Every time they get down around the goal line, Jonathan Taylor, for the running back for the Colts, is definitely good enough to punch it in, but sometimes they bring Jacoby Brissett in there to sneak it over the goal line, just a bigger body, more athleticism. But overall, I mean, geez, that's just going to create even more controversy. It's almost like when you have two quarterbacks, the old saying is you don't have any quarterbacks. So we'll see what happens moving
Right.
forward. But I don't expect Wentz to see much of the field, if any, the rest of the year.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap up our show this week, and we will be right back here after the game against the Cardinals next.